The sun was sinking behind the gray city blocks when 12-year-old Liam, barefoot, starving, and covered in dust, rummaged through the foul-smelling dump for anything he could trade for a piece of stale bread, his small body trembling each time the bulldozer roared nearby, pushing mountains of trash that had become a graveyard for the forgotten. But today, as he climbed over a pile of broken crates, his eyes widened in shock when he spotted a familiar figure, a frail woman with tangled hair, torn clothes, and dull, sorrowful eyes. The same warm eyes that once sang him to sleep, his mother, whom he'd been told died years ago in a factory explosion, leaving him alone in the cruel world. Shaking, he tried calling out to her, but she staggered away as if running from ghosts. Panicked, he chased her but lost her in the maze of garbage hills, and in desperation he ran toward the main road, stumbling onto the path of a sleek black car that screeched to a halt inches from him, the door flying open as Alexander Ward, the feared, cold-hearted millionaire known for building empires and breaking competitors, stormed out, furious that a child had nearly dented his imported car. But as Alexander walked closer, his anger dimmed at the sight of the trembling, dirt-stained boy whose eyes glistened not from fear but from unbearable grief. Liam cried out, "Sir, please, you have to help me. My mother, she's alive. I just saw her in the dump." And Alexander, who had buried his own mother at a young age, froze at the crack in the boy's voice. His fiancée, Clarissa, dressed in a blazing red gown, scoffed and demanded they leave. The street rat, but something in Liam's desperation stabbed Alexander deeper than he expected. Ignoring Clarissa's protest, he knelt to face the boy, asking how he could be certain it was his mother. And Liam, choking between sobs, revealed how he grew up with nothing but memories of her lullabies, her warm touch, and a broken locket he still kept in his pocket, the same locket he saw hanging around the woman's neck in the dump, making him drop everything and sprint after her. Alexander sensed the truth in the boy's trembling voice, but Clarissa tugged his arm, hissing that the boy was lying for attention or money. Yet Alexander couldn't shake the feeling that destiny had placed this child in his path. Trying to steady him, Alexander asked Liam where he last saw her, but Liam's knees buckled, his stomach growling violently, and he collapsed in exhaustion. Without hesitation, Alexander carried the boy into his car, shocking Clarissa into silence, and ordered his driver to head toward the dump, determined to verify the child's claim. As the car sped through the dimming streets, Liam whispered the same plea repeatedly. "Please don't let her disappear again." And Alexander, looking at the fragile child leaning against him, felt something unfamiliar blooming in his chest, a tenderness he hadn't felt in years, for reasons he couldn't explain yet. He silently vowed that tonight he would find Liam's mother, or the truth behind the tragedy that nearly stole the boy's soul. The dusk deepened into a heavy blanket of night as Alexander's car rolled into the dump, headlights sweeping across hills of rusted metal, plastic bags fluttering like lost spirits, and scavengers silently wandering through the debris like shadows, searching for survival. Alexander stepped out carrying Liam, who insisted on walking despite his trembling legs, pointing toward the area where he saw his mother disappear, while Clarissa remained in the car. Furious that her glamorous evening had devolved into a search through filth, they moved deeper through the dump, calling out softly into the darkness, and every crunch of broken glass beneath their feet made Liam wince in fear that his mother might never hear him. Suddenly, the faint sound of coughing echoed from behind a toppled dumpster, and Liam broke into a sprint, Alexander rushing after him, fearing the boy might hurt himself. When they rounded the corner, they found not Liam's mother, but an older man who recognized the boy instantly, calling him Little Liam from the old factory neighborhood, and revealing a shocking truth. Liam's mother had survived the explosion years ago, but the fire left her with deep trauma and memory loss. Believing her son dead, she drifted between shelters and dump sites, lost in a fog of confusion and pain. Alexander's heart cracked as the man continued, saying that the woman came here every few nights, clutching her locket, crying for a child she couldn't remember but felt she had lost. Liam sobbed uncontrollably, begging to know where she was now, and the man pointed toward a shack made of sheet metal on the far end of the dump. With renewed energy, Liam sprinted across the trash hills, slipping, falling, getting back up, and finally reaching the shack where a dim lantern flickered inside. Alexander stayed close behind him, pushing aside the rusted door, and there she was, thin, fragile, shivering, staring blankly at the wall as if trapped between past and present, the same locket glowing faintly in the lantern light. When Liam whispered, "Mama," her eyes shifted, confused, but then widened in recognition, not of memory but of instinct. As a mother's soul recognized what her mind could not, she reached for him with trembling hands as Liam collapsed into her arms, their sobs echoing through the night. Alexander stood frozen, overwhelmed by the raw truth of what he had witnessed, ashamed of ever thinking success meant having no heart. As Liam clung to his mother, Alexander quietly vowed to give them both a new life, offering shelter, medical care, and a chance at the happiness they had been robbed of. Clarissa, disgusted that Alexander cared more about garbage people than her, stormed off, ending their engagement on the spot. But Alexander felt liberated, realizing he had been chained to a life of vanity and emptiness. Weeks later, Liam's mother received treatment, slowly regaining fragments of her past, and Alexander legally adopted Liam, promising to protect him like his own son, transforming from a cold-hearted billionaire into a man driven by compassion. Their bond became a story that inspired thousands, proving that miracles often hide in places everyone else forgets, like a dump, where hope can still rise from the ashes of despair. And Liam would later narrate their story himself, reminding the world that sometimes a single moment of kindness can rewrite an entire destiny. Months passed like a gentle storm, bringing both healing and change, and although Liam's mother, Marina, was slowly recovering under the careful guidance of doctors hired by Alexander, pieces of her memory still floated like scattered puzzle fragments she struggled to put together. Alexander, now freed from his hollow engagement and driven by a newfound purpose, devoted every evening to visiting her rehabilitation center, watching Liam hold her hand and read her stories from the old children's books she once read to him, hoping each familiar word might unlock another door in her mind. Yet even as hope blossomed, the shadows of their past began to crawl back. For one night, Marina trembled uncontrollably in her sleep, whispering fragments of a secret, a fire, a man's voice, and a hidden truth she had never spoken to anyone, which left Liam frightened and Alexander deeply unsettled. Determined to understand the mystery that had haunted her for years, Alexander hired investigators to revisit the old factory explosion, only to discover a shocking possibility. The fire might not have been an accident, but a deliberate act linked to corruption within the company that had once employed Marina, a company that, to Alexander's horror, had secretly been taken over by one of his own rival businessmen, Victor Hale, known for cruelty hidden behind a polished smile. When Alexander confronted Victor privately, Victor laughed coldly, claiming that the explosion cleaned out unprofitable liabilities, including workers like Marina, and that the world had too many poor people. Anyway, a statement that ignited a fury in Alexander he had never felt before. Meanwhile, with her memory slowly returning, Marina recalled seeing Victor at the factory days before the fire, speaking to supervisors about shutting down sections without caring for the workers trapped inside, and when she tried warning others, someone shoved her into a supply room that later exploded, leaving her presumed dead. Realizing she had survived a murder attempt, Alexander vowed not only to protect her and Liam, but to bring down Victor's empire built on ashes of innocent lives. As Alexander gathered evidence and prepared to expose Victor publicly, danger crept closer. Strange cars parked outside the rehabilitation center at night, men loitering near Alexander's home, and an attempted break-in that was stopped only because Liam woke up at the right moment.